Good morning and welcome to Wisdom on Wednesday. And today is part 2 with Alisa Dusan, who's a registered dietitian, and she's going to be offering practical tips for how to feed your family well. And Alisa, I'm just excited to hear what you have to say about just tips for busy families with sports and school and everything going on, how we can still feed our family well. So what are some
Great.
tips?
Yes. So last week we did talk about kind of protecting our teens against this culture that's constantly bombarding them with bad diet information, risky nutrition advice, and behaviors. And one really important way to do that is to just have a really good steady rhythm and structure around mealtime and just regular meals, regular feeding going on in your home. But that's definitely easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
So we know from research that especially in the teen years, things like family dinners used as a connect point is really protective against just even risky behaviors with our teenagers, having that connect point with their family. But also, we know that families are busy, parents are working, kids are, especially teenagers, my gosh, between school and sports or drama or band or whatever they're doing, those things become really elusive and hard to make happen.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking you're talking about the importance of family meals, and yet I think about how busy it is with kids as they get into the middle and high school years, where you have music practice, theater practice, sports practice, and people running every which way. And with larger families, is it even possible? What are some ideas on how you can do it amidst a very busy schedule?
Right. So, first of all, it is possible. It might not look like what we imagine, in a
Right.
picture perfect Pinterest world. Just real quick before we kind of go into some strategies, I do want to say that in my practice, one mistake I see happen a lot in families is when they hit that really busy space is just handing feeding over entirely to their preteen or teenager and not still providing that scaffolding for them. And especially in these preteen years that, the 12, 13, 14, 15-year olds, they really aren't ready to fully own feeding of themselves. And so those kids really do flounder in that environment. And so really still providing, again, it doesn't have to be controlling and watching every bite or anything like that, but some structure for them is really, really important at that age. So yeah, I kind of just wrote down a list of some things that I think can be helpful if maybe you do find yourself in a position where the busyness has taken over and so eating has become kind of chaotic or willy-nilly in your home. Some easy ways to regain that. So do fight for that structure. If you're going back to saying, okay, I am going to try to at least have dinners kind of set and provided, my first advice would be to keep it really, really simple. So I think, again, going back to like Pinterest and these influences that we have, we tend to get really overwhelmed with what this has to look like.
Too many choices,
too many fancy choices. So it's no longer okay to make lasagna. What's the best lasagna recipe and what's the fanciest way to do it? And really, feeding our family should not be a competitive sport. It should not be a comparison game. We just have to find a way to be consistent and steady with it. So in terms of meals, and let's say you are going back to, okay, I am going to plan, and there does need to be a plan in place. There's nothing more frustrating than having a refrigerator full of groceries with no plan and then just slowly watching them expire and rot away because, it's hard to make it happen. So I would choose, especially if you're regaining this, only meals that you can do from memory that are very simple. So take recipes completely off the table, especially a new recipe. There is nothing more stressful on a weeknight than following a new recipe when you are busy and you're trying to do stuff.
And you don't know how it's going to turn out.
And you don't know how it's going to turn out. And so it's overwhelming. So most of us have a handful of meals that we can pull out of our pocket and just do. So in our house, spaghetti, I don't need to follow a recipe to brown the ground beef and pour a jar of spaghetti sauce and boil the noodles. So spaghetti in a bag Caesar salad, or rice and beans with maybe a little cheese or some taco meat and whatever veggies you have. whatever, tacos, things like that tend to be things that people can do from memory without a recipe, and really keep it at just those things, especially initially. So in our house, I do a max of 1 new recipe a week. It's usually 0. So we're talking maybe 1 or 2. I'm even trying a month just to keep things interesting. But knowing that if I make a meal plan that's all new recipes, the follow through is probably not going to happen. It's just too overwhelming and too hard to happen.
With 4 kids, right?
Yeah, with 4 kids, it's just not going to happen. So keep the majority of your meals things you can do from memory, you can do quickly and easily. It doesn't need to be fancy to do the trick. Give yourself permission to have convenient backups in the freezer or wherever you need for when that, the meal you were planning on cooking just doesn't happen. So one thing we do at our house a lot is we keep the frozen pizzas from Costco in the freezer. Yeah. They're easy. We pull it out. And sometimes, you just have to go that direction. Right. So keeping things like bag salads, frozen pizza, fish sticks, whatever you need to do is those easy backups that don't go bad. Have those. And then also give yourself permission to use pre-prepped items. Like this does not have to be, you don't have to go get a CSA box from the local farm and make this really fancy. You don't need to go to the farmer's market. I mean, if you are really confident in meal planning and enjoy those things, go for it. But out the gate, get the, bag of broccoli that's pre-chopped that you can throw in the microwave to steam, get the salads that are pre-prepped. Get things that take those steps out of it and you'll have a lot better chance of success. But often we feel this pressure to make it perfect, ideal, and our kind of pressure for perfection and doing everything maybe the right way keeps us from even being able to do it at all.
That makes sense.
So find the rhythm that works for you and your family that kind of matches how much time you want to spend in the kitchen. It's okay if you're not a person that wants to make everything from scratch, and give yourself permission to do those things in a way that works for you and your values in your house. That makes sense. Yeah. So that would be as you're starting. Also, as you're starting meal planning and getting back on track with that, it's really important, again, that your meal plans are realistic, but also add in allowance for eating out or for busy nights also. So for example, we plan 5 dinners a week in our family. There's usually a leftover night thrown in there, and there's usually something that's going to happen. Right. And so we always have a plan for 5 dinners a week. Because there's going to be a Chick-fil-A night or eat at the football game night or whatever is happening there. And I think it's also really important that you don't make it too rigid. So another area that people tend to stumble on is they say, Monday we're eating this, and Tuesday we're eating this, and Wednesday we're eating this. And then when that doesn't happen, it feels frustrating and it spirals down. So instead of having specific days for foods, just have 5 dinners on hand.
That's a good idea.
And you can do what, time and space allows for with that list each day. And another thing that I think is really crucial with meal planning is that whoever is the person who's doing it in your home, whether it's mom or dad, that the meal plan is posted on the fridge, in the kitchen, somewhere. Because if it's just in one person's head, the ability of the rest of the family to chip in and help and be aware of it and make it, more of a team effort goes by the wayside. So as simple as these are the 5 dinners we have ingredients for this week, so that if you're the main person that makes meals, but you're running late one day or stuff's going on, you can tell your spouse, you can tell maybe your teenager, hey, pick the thing on the list that you feel comfortable making and get it going. And then I can get home. But it is important that it's out of whoever's doing its head and where the family can see, so that help can happen and everyone can participate.
I think that's a really great idea, because also it makes it more of a family affair and it doesn't fall on one person.
Right. And it can be, again, this isn't a fancy thing. It can be a scrap of paper that says spaghetti, tacos, list just the 5 meals, slap it on the fridge.
So a pre-plan, which saves time during the week, spending a little bit of time up front. Yes. Is going to really buy you time all week long.
Absolutely. You need to at least know a minimum of a few meals you plan to make, and a place for the family to be aware of what is available. And
that's why I sometimes walk in the house and see Peter looking at a list and starting a meal and including the kids in the helping?
So that's been a real game changer in our family because I've always been the one who does the meal planning, grocery shopping, and a significant amount of the meal preparation. And I realized it was actually kind of frustrating me, but I realized it was all in my head,
Right.
so how is he even going to step in and help me? And now if I'm running late at work or things are going crazy with the kids, he can literally consult a list and pick the thing he feels comfortable
Right,
making
right.
and just get it going,
That's great.
instead of me being frustrated that he didn't somehow know what was going on in my head.
Well,
and how to help with that.
what about,
Mhm.
your kids are still younger, but what about
Yeah.
those families where the practices are all over the place
Yes.
and you're rarely at home together?
So, yeah, that is tricky. Teenagers with multiple practices. I did ask my sister, who does have some older kiddos and more sports going on. We have some in our family, but again, 3 of my kids are still grammar school age. So it's
Mhm.
not the same as a teenage family. And she gave me some really helpful tips. She found that last year, I guess pre COVID, when things were still going on normally, they really had a hard time holding on to any family connect point around food. And so they made a commitment this year, which I thought was a really neat idea, is that if everyone's on any given weeknight, if everyone's sports were done by 8 p.m., then they would have, large snacks after school and in preparation for sport, but they would hold dinner till that point and have it all together
Oh,
at
that's
that
neat.
time. So that bought them a few nights a week where it
Mhm.
wasn't happening. And then when that's just not possible, my nephew's practices sometimes go as late as 9,
Mhm.
9:15 at night. Then they do a family dessert before bed. So
And then they
again, that
eat, yeah.
connect point around food, that's really, really important. So they might be eating at separate times, or
Mhm.
the younger ones with my sister, or son with dad at separate times. So they're still trying to at least eat, maybe in little pods throughout the evening. But they're having everyone sit down and have a bowl of ice cream or have cookies. And there's such high value to that connect point over
And the
food and
research shows
fighting for
that.
that. It does show that.
Mhm.
And so I loved that kind of workaround where they still got that, even if it wasn't this,
Mhm.
picture that we imagine of family dinner around the table. And the other thing, I just kind of mentioned it though, is that she said they do try to eat in pods at least. So if,
Mhm.
2 people are home, trying to have those 2 people eat together and
Right.
still have at least groups that are connecting
And a plan
over
for
the
what they're
meal.
eating still
And a
overall.
plan for what they're eating. And that's where, things like crock pot that you have the keep
Mhm.
warm setting on, using your keep warm setting on the oven. I
Right.
mean, as long as that food's at a safe temperature, you can
Right.
keep it warm a long time. And so having dinner done and people that we can
Mhm.
pull it out. Another thing I wanted to show you guys, this is something we use in our home a lot, especially when we're carpooling for sports, but they're these little bento box plastic things. Um, and what I like about these is they're great for meals on the go. So you can
Mm.
still have a plan, or, one person can't join the family for dinner. You can still pack it up in this. And there's a few reasons I like these. The compartments are helpful in visualizing a balanced meal.
Mhm.
So you're thinking, do I have, a carbohydrate? Do I have a protein? Do I have fruits and vegetables? And you can kind of visualize and put them into
That's
spots. Or, if it's more of a main dish, do I have, the main dish here, a fruit, a vegetable here, for my kid, and then you can just throw it. And I think the crucial piece when you're buying these is you want them dishwasher safe so that you can reuse them, but cheap enough that you can chuck them too
That's
without
great. Where do
feeling
you
bad.
buy these?
These are Amazon.
Okay.
So this actually isn't my very favorite brand are the Easy Lunchbox ones. It's a brand called Easy Lunchboxes, but these ones are also great. I mean, I think they come in like a 30 pack.
Oh, wow.
And so over the course of a year, I mean, goodness, if one gets left in a car, I am throwing that away.
Exactly.
I am not cleaning that out. So it has to just be simple, but also, we try to
Mhm.
dishwash them and keep it. The other thing that's valuable, and kind of one more piece of advice, is for the meals as you're going into preteen, SL to SR phases, really providing some structure for the meals that your kids are providing for themselves. So some guidelines of how you do it in your
Mhm.
family. So a really simple guideline, most kids at this age don't have a hard time getting the carbs in because they enjoy it. They're more driven towards carbohydrates, which is fine. But what they'll often leave out is a protein and a fruit or vegetable. So a simple, hey, when you pack your lunch or when you make your breakfast or whatever, remember we have a carb, a protein, a fruit or vegetable at every meal. Just simple structure. And that's another thing that this can be handy for, is if they're packing lunches, packing breakfasts on the go, remind them, you know, fill all your spots. And that way they're getting kind of a general structure of balance. Because another thing that happens is teenagers will over and over just go to the simple grab things. So, you know, they might have 5 granola bars for lunch because they grabbed it, and they're not thinking through what makes for a balanced meal and gets me what I need. So sense. Even simple containers like this can provide a reminder for that in the structure for that for them.
Well, that's great.
So, yeah.
Well, Alisa is a dietitian, and I know that if you have any comments or questions, you're certainly able to post those, and we'll see if we can get back to you. But we want to just thank you for listening today, and thank you, Alisa, for coming and sharing those tips.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Have a great day.
Thanks.